Here for the Tom, ESCOM Secretary, Father CP Anto, COVID Task Force, Kohima Diocese, Dr. Selvi Angami, our resource person today, Pastor Abel Adalan, Father Pius from Ceylon, Sister Seji, MS MHE, MHHC, Mrs. Gugu Heralu, Father Blasius Tete, Mr. Alan Brooks, NESCOM executive members, the participants, and friends. Good evening to all of you, and welcome to today's webinar, which is conducted in collaboration with COVID Task Force Kohima Diocese. We are all communication campaigners against COVID-19. In spite of our efforts, we continue to hear the vast section of our rural population still guided by ignorance and misinformation against vaccination. The topic chosen for today's meeting is on debunking misinformation and myths. The topic chosen is very apt and appropriate as it is very relevant to present situation. It will help us communicators to equip ourselves with better understanding and knowledge to fight misinformation and myths against vaccination. We continue to go through difficult phase of life. This is there is fear everywhere as there is no respite from the pandemic. Today, I would like to emphasize on self-responsibility with regard to COVID-19. It is clear that the virus comes from outside our body. It is not generated from inside. This virus is only a visitor, but once it gets in the body, it does its work, which is dangerous for it. A dog will bark and a snake will bite because it is its nature. Similarly, the coronavirus will attack. Let us have no doubts about it. Therefore, each one has to take the responsibility for oneself that it does not get into the body. There is no one whom we can blame for it if it happens. So, shut down the doors and windows of the body, then virus cannot enter. Secondly, self-responsibility demands taking precautions. The government protocols and vaccination measures are precautionary measures. We are living in a world of information and communication. There is enough credible preventive measures available in the net. One should be humble enough to go out of the way to gather the required and sufficient information on pandemic, especially from authorized sources. Thirdly, self-responsibility demands that one is duty bound not to distribute it to others. Once a person is COVID positive, he or she must isolate himself or herself and follow the protocols so that others are not affected from him or her. Fourthly, responsibility of others towards COVID-19 patients. Here, of course, comes the question of about supplying COVID patients all what they require since they are restricted in space, be it food or hospitalization. Responsibility of all is demanded. The government, voluntary organizations, NGOs, and individuals to provide the best to the COVID patients. When everyone begins to take responsibility of oneself and others, only then we will be able to prevent COVID-19 from spreading. In conclusion, let us remember this: not getting affected by COVID-19 is the best charity we can do to our health. Getting COVID-19 tribute we can offer to humanity. Commit ourselves and pray with consolation with which we ourselves are consoled by God. With this, Father Tom,
Father Tom.
Father Tom,
I think Father Tom.
Thank you, Bishop Albert. Thank you for those words that you have given to all of us. Now, may I invite Father Ando, the director of this channel, and also the chairman of the COVID task force in Kohima, of the Kohima diocese, to specially introduce and welcome Dr. Sadevi Angami. I know we are heard about Dr. Sadevi. He has been doing a wonderful service in Dimapur, the Apollo Hospital, Dimapur is popularly known. Um, we would like to hear from Father Ando, and Father Ando,
Okay.
please take your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father Tom, for giving me this opportunity to introduce a noble person of Nagaland. Well, very good evening to everyone. Respected Bishop Most Reverend Albert Hemron, the Bishop of Dibruga Diocese, Father Johnson, SDB, the President of Signis, Northeast India, Father Tom, the Secretary to NESCOM, and our beloved Dr. Sadivi Angami, the resource person of the day, fathers, sisters, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be part of this noble initiative of NESCOM, and this time Father Tom has collaborated with Catholic Church COVID Task Force of Nagaland, and we are very happy to collaborate and even the days to come too. And well, today we have a very renowned and upright medical doctor in the name of Dr. Sadivi Angami, and I have this privilege to introduce him as the resource person of the day. And I think Dr. Sadivi need not be introduced in the Nagaland people of Nagaland and also southern Northeast India. He is known for his uh, competency, dedication, commitment, and nobility and honesty. Well, Dr. Sridevi, though he is a medical physician, he is also known as a philanthropist for us. He is a very well known social worker and much more a humanitarian person who has a lot of concern for the poor and the needy. And you will soon come to know he, in collaboration with the churches in Nagaland, is going to feed the hungry people of Dimapur and in the southernest in the state of Nagaland. Studies and as a profession in gastro also Reverend Sister Shiji Miss MHSC, Miss Gugu Heralu, and others for this noble initiative started by NESCOM. In the today we will be listening to Dr. Devi on debunking misinformation and myths on COVID-19 vaccine. Thank you once again and welcome once again all of you to this input session by Dr. Sadevi. Dr. Sadevi, back to you.
Okay. Thank you for that kind introduction, Father Anto. Good evening to everybody, and I'd like to thank NESCOM also for inviting me to discuss this very important topic. Um, Generally, myths and superstitions and things like that are not so important, but in this particular situation, it has become center stage because of social media, and also it has it has created such a lot of trouble that it does need to be addressed very vigorously. And that's why I think it's very apt that NESCOM has taken this subject, and I would like to share a little bit of my understanding of this subject. I'm borrowing a lot from here and there. None of my talks are original. Everything is second-hand. The scripture says there's nothing original under the sun. So all my knowledge is not original. It is borrowed from here and there. So I will just share a little bit. Uh, okay. Now I need to go to share screen. Yeah. Okay. Right. Can you see my screen?
We can see. Doctor.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Now let me just go
Yes,
through a bit.
doctor.
The topic is really about COVID vaccines, the myths and debunking the myths of and misinformation. I think this is an extremely important topic. Uh, Now recently, uh, in
Yeah,
our
now
own
I can see.
yeah, in our own hospital we have about 530 staff and another 100 or so outsourced staff. So, when the COVID pandemic started, people were all scared. And they were thinking, when will the vaccine come? When will the vaccine come? They were all, really impatient for the vaccine coming. And when they said 1 year it's going to take, they thought, oh, it's too long. No. But finally the vaccine came, and then people said, no, I don't want to take the vaccine. No, so that is such a paradox. Now, we, even in our own hospital, we have registered everybody because they're all health workers or frontline workers. And therefore, we thought they will be very happy to get their vaccines. But to our surprise, we found that a large number of our own staff did not want to take vaccines. So recently, a lot of us have been vaccinated, but a few, quite a good amount, still were not vaccinated. So I thought I need to talk to each one of these and find out what are the reasons why they don't want to get vaccinated. So I called from my own admin office. I called. There were 8 people who are not vaccinated. So I asked them, why do you not want to get vaccinated? So the answers were, one is people are dying of clots, and that you've heard about it in Europe and things like that. You will become infertile. You will lose your fertility, especially women. There is a conspiracy going on. There's a microchip tracking device, and this in the WhatsApp groups you would have heard about it. Very learned scientists are talking against it. So they can't be all wrong. No, big scientists like from Pfizer, they're talking. So maybe there's some truth in what they're saying. Vaccines should not be used during an epidemic. That is what some scientists are saying. That in vaccinology, the first lesson you teach your student is that during an epidemic, you should not use it. Uh, some said it has not yet been tried adequately. The clinical trials are still going on. We have not got enough results. Some said it's not effective. It's not safe. Vaccine can cause other diseases. So some person said, my relative never had measles, and finally, suddenly after vaccine, he got measles. And then even if you get vaccination, you're not really protected. And in some small WhatsApp groups, they even said you'll be embedded with the 666, you lose your salvation and things like that. Of course, I think a lot of people don't take this very seriously, but people who are not very educated might even take it seriously. So there are various reasons, and these are not reasons which we should just laugh at. Because for that person, that perception in him is so strong that he refuses to get vaccinated. And if he refuses to get vaccinated, there's a high chance that he can have a serious infection. And that's the reason why I felt it's necessary to address each one by one. But having discussed each item one by one, people sometimes are still not yet convinced because this fake news and all has gone so far and so wide in such a powerful manner, in such a convincing manner that it has become extremely difficult to combat it. Now, what are the facts? Uh, Father Anto just mentioned that in CMC, Christian Medical College Hospital, 9,000 staff were there, all had been vaccinated, and they see around 600 patients of COVID every day. But in the last 1 year, not a single staff died or not a single staff got admitted in the ICU. Now that is a very significant thing. In our friend circles in mission hospitals, we have around 200 mission hospitals across the country under the CMEI. And the discussion has been that amongst their vaccinated staff, nobody has died or nobody has got seriously ill. Some few died, but they were not vaccinated. Now, this is very important. Even in our own, we were just reviewing our own hospital data, and we realized that from our staff who were falling ill, it was only those who had not got vaccinated who were falling ill. Fortunately, our staff is predominantly young, so nobody got very seriously ill, but it could have happened. And then when we looked at our mortality data, we looked at just 2 days back, we looked at the number of patients who died in the last 1 year. we found that 65 patients had died in our hospital, and we looked at how many of them were vaccinated. So we found that almost everybody had not been vaccinated. Only two people were vaccinated who died. And that also they had got the infection very soon, immediately after their first dose. They did not even have a chance for the first dose to have some effect. So predominantly, people who died were those who were not vaccinated. Now, we know that vaccines are effective and have been shown to reduce mortality. And this has been shown across several studies all over the world. This is now proven without doubt. Most of the vaccines now are around 90 to 95% effective. Vaccines are effective. We know that in USA, Israel, now the numbers have gone so less that in Israel, they even don't need to wear a mask. Vaccines do protect against variants. And you know that if it is a virus, virus will always mutate. No, there is no virus which does not mutate. And virus, it's the norm of the viruses to keep mutating. And so we have the UK variant, the South African variant, the Brazilian variant, and the Indian variant. And they're giving various numbers, alpha, beta, delta, and things like that. But what they have found is that the vaccines are protecting against all these variants, which means there is a particular part of the virus which is common to all the variants. I may be a Northeast Indian with slightly different face. I may be a South Indian with a slightly different complexion, and a North Indian. But all of us have something which is common, and that commonality is is response to a particular drug. So the same thing in the back in variants of viruses, there is something common in the viruses, even though there are variants. And the vaccine seems to be affecting, working on the common part of the virus. So it does work against variants. Now, vaccines also reduce variants from forming because if you have a lot of people who are protected, the virus can only mutate when it reproduces. So if it does not reproduce, it will not develop a variant. So the best way to protect against producing variants is to vaccinate and reduce the transmission and reproduction. So if there is no reproduction of virus, there is no mutation. Now there are different types of vaccines today. So one is you have the inactivated or weakened virus vaccines. These have been known for a long time. We use a lot of it, like BCG and things like that. And the Covaxin is it comes under this category. Now, there are other viral vector vaccines. So you take a small virus, which is different from the COVID virus, which has been inactivated, and you use that to carry the antigen to be presented to the body. And it makes the body respond to the vaccine better. So it stimulates antibodies better. So Covishield, the Sputnik, Johnson and all are that type of viral vector vaccines. The RNA and DNA vaccines are very, very sophisticated vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna, and they are vaccines which are actually tagged onto these, highly sophisticated, vehicles. And these do not go into the DNA. They don't go into the nucleus of the cell, but it goes into the cell and it stimulates the cell. So these are very cutting edge technology. And then you have protein-based vaccines, which are newer vaccines which are coming up. Now, in India, we have two vaccines which are widely used, and the Sputnik vaccine is going to be produced by Reddy's lab from Russia. They've imported the patent, and then they're going to do that. Now, both these vaccines seem to be quite effective. Now, what are the myths which we read about or which we hear about? So, one is that COVID-19 vaccine will make you magnetic. So, there is nothing that can produce an electromagnetic field at the site of the injection, and this is free from any metal or microelectronics or a chip. And therefore, this is just a farce, it's just a myth. And this has been tested by many people, and they found that it doesn't work actually. It's just a trick. The other myth is that vaccine will cause shedding of components or virus components. And then when that happens, then certain viruses actually will come into your body. Again, vaccine shedding can only occur when a vaccine contains a weakened version of the virus. Now, if it's a messenger mRNA virus or protein-based virus, obviously it has got nothing to the virus. It's just a part of the virus, and therefore it is an inactive part. So that is also untrue. The COVID-19 vaccine causes infertility. That's what people believe. And so far, there is no evidence that vaccination causes any problems in pregnancy and including the development of placenta. There is no evidence that fertility problems are a side effect of any vaccine. And scientists are studying this very carefully, and they possibly keep studying this for many, many years to come. Because generally, in women, normally when you do a clinical trial of a drug or vaccine or anything, it's very difficult to do it on pregnant women and children. The studies and the results on pregnant women take much longer to come. Generally, you have tested in normal people for a very long time, and then when you find it's really safe, then they start testing on pregnancy. But it is quite difficult to find that out. But the fact about this is that it does not cause infertility. Now, the reason why they said that it causes infertility is because some very famous scientists, some top scientists in Pfizer and all, they said there is a spike protein on coronavirus, and this has similarity with another protein called syncytin-1, which is there in the placenta. So if you get this is the virus, the syncytin spike protein, and this is syncytin-1, and the antibody which works against the spike protein will also work against the syncytin-1 in the placenta. So by chance, the antibody is trying to work on the virus but will attack the placenta. Now that sounds quite convincing, but actually speaking, that is not true. They are quite different proteins, and therefore they are quite distinct, and there is no cross reaction. And what we have also seen that is that syncytin one type of protein is also present in the hemoglobin. It's also present in the muscle. So which means if women are going to get infertile, they should also become anemic and they should lose muscle mass. That has not happened. Also, they found that in the vaccine trials with Pfizer, 23 women volunteers who took the vaccine actually became pregnant. And one suffered pregnancy loss, but this was got a placebo, not the vaccine. So, vaccine does not cause infertility. But on the other hand, actually getting a vaccine can cause serious impact on pregnancy and the mother's health. My DNA and we don't know what's going to happen out of it. I might become a does not change or interact with our DNA in any manner because it does not enter into the nucleus of the cell. The DNA resides in the nucleus. And if the viral vector does not enter into the DNA, the nucleus, that is not going to change my DNA. It only enables the cell to produce much better antibodies using the natural resources of the body. So this doesn't alter my DNA. Then they also say vaccine will make me sick with COVID. Vaccines do not contain the live virus. So that's why it is impossible for the vaccine to make you sick with COVID. In our own laboratory, we have a BSL-2 lab and we are testing for COVID every day. Now what we do is we take from the nasal swab, we take the swab and we put it in a viral test media, And that goes to the part where we call extraction. And once we have extracted the RNA, the virus RNA from the fluid, then the remaining part becomes inactive. And we use that, we take that RNA and put it into a machine and measure. But when we take it into the machine, it is non-infective anymore. The RNA is non-infective, so we are not so worried. We don't have to put the whole PPE at that point, just a mask. So virus RNA is not the same as live virus. So actually, the vaccines teaches our immune systems to recognize and fight the virus. So it doesn't make you sick. Uh, you know, but people are getting sick with fever after getting the virus, and that is after getting the vaccine, and that is true. Quite a few people do get fever. So these symptoms are normal. When you have fever, so not everybody gets fever, but some people get it. These are just signs that the body is building a protection against the virus. Also, when you get a vaccine, the vaccine is not only related to the virus. There are certain vehicles which are there, which enable the vaccine to become effective. So there are supportive vehicles which are there, and those chemicals can also cause fever. So fever doesn't mean you have become infected with COVID or you have got the infection. And it takes a few weeks for the body to build immunity after the vaccine is given. So sometimes, supposing I got the vaccine today and tomorrow I get fever, it could also be possible that you were exposed to the virus 2 days back and now you are manifesting with fever. So just because you got vaccinated, it doesn't mean you got the disease. There is also possible that you got the vaccination today and you got infected by the virus after 2 3 days, and you can still get fever or an infection or suffer from the disease 1 week down the line because the vaccine has not yet taken full effect. It takes time to take its full effect and give you protection. Now, the other thing is, I've already had COVID infection, and so I don't need the vaccine. That's what some people think. Why should I get the vaccination now? I've already been infected. Now, we now know that people who recover from the disease can still benefit from vaccination because we don't know how good immunity response evolves after a normal infection. And so, even if you've had an infection, you can still boost your immunity by taking a vaccination. And of course, the vaccines have now become much more sophisticated and they are stimulating your immunity sometimes even better than an infection. Uh, Now, some people feel, this vaccine, it was developed so fast. We have heard that in the past it takes about 7 8 years to develop a vaccine. How come they developed it so fast? So we don't trust it. It's too fast. So it's uh, the problem is we were all waiting for the vaccine. We're saying, please bring it fast, fast. 1 year is too long. So if you get it in 6 months, that's it's too short. No? Now 1 year they're saying is too short. Now you ask this person, what is the right amount of time? Do you want it to come in 7 years? Or do you want it to come in 3 years? Then they say, no, 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 3 years is too long. No? So 1 year is too fast, 3 years is too long. Then the way we bargain is neither mine, neither yours. Maybe let's make it 2 years. 2 years, all of us will be convinced it's okay. Now that would be a disaster because I think people all over the world have been studying and trying to develop vaccines with the best of technology. And everybody knows the rules now. It's not that people don't know the rules of developing vaccines and the technology. So people have found that vaccines are more than 95% effective. And companies have now got the technology to develop it much faster. And what has happened also is that some vaccine, the government has been no other project, except maybe HIV. HIV is one situation where the funding has been phenomenal. huge amount of funding was given to HIV, and that's why so many drugs, evolved very, very fast. In the same way, the vaccine funding has been phenomenal. I don't know in India, but at least in America and UK and all, the funding has been so high that you can put more people into it. You can get whatever technology you want is given to them, and that's the reason why they've been able to be so fast. Even licensing, you might, if you are in America, you would need to send it to the FDA, and the FDA might take a long time to look at your file. But in this situation, everything is fast track. Everybody is looking at it fast. They're not cutting corners or anything like that, but they just made the process more facilitative and faster. Uh, yeah, social media has also helped companies to get volunteers much faster. And because COVID-19 is so contagious and widespread, so we can test it on more people at a faster rate, and so we can get the results even faster. And then many companies have even made the vaccine ready to be shipped as soon as the FDA gives authorization, so they're able to supply it faster. So some people feel that getting the COVID vaccine means I can stop wearing my mask and coronavirus precautions are not required. And of course, in America, they said those who are fully vaccinated need not wear masks and all that. But then it's also said that in certain areas you wear the mask. So in reality, it's better to wear the mask. We are nowhere near America standards or Israel standards, and so for us, it is better that we wear the mask and continue to use all the precautions. Some people say the side effects of vaccine are very dangerous. Uh, so there are some side effects like body ache, headache, fever, which lasts for a day or two. Most of them get better within 2 3 days. I got vaccinated, my wife got vaccinated, my father and mother are almost 90 years. They got vaccinated, a little bit fever, but otherwise they're all okay. So generally, I think it is all right to get vaccinated. All our staff who got vaccinated have not had much problems. Uh, some people may get rash, but this is just a response to a vaccine, and it is not measles. And it can happen to any. You can eat sugar and still get rash. That's not measles. But if you have serious allergies to anything, you might as well consult with your doctor. Allergy to penicillin doesn't mean you'll get allergy to the vaccine. They also say this vaccine is causing clots. Actually, COVID infection causes clots much 100 times more than a vaccine. And what we found is in our patients who get admitted, almost all of them require anticoagulants to prevent clots or to treat clots. Smoking and birth control pills can cause more clots than vaccines. So the amount of clots that vaccine can cause is 0.0001 type of thing, very 1 in a million type of a chance. So it's almost negligible and can also be easily treated. They say vaccine might contain controversial substances, and there are no controversial substances like microchips or implants. Some people say, I don't trust the ICMR and the government. They just want to push it on us. Okay, I mean, in India, the best we could follow is the government and ICMR. But if you don't trust the ICMR and the government, would you trust the fake news more? At least the ICMR and the government, we can look at how their credentials, how they got their data and things. Fake news, how will you get that information? Are the makers of fake news more interested in us than the ICMR? If we don't trust ICMR and government, at least you can look at CDC, WHO, Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, or the NHS. Look at the official websites and see whether they concur. I'm sure all of them are not saying different things. Most of them are saying exactly the same. So everybody cannot be wrong all at the same time. And so one day or the other, we have to trust somebody eventually. So basically, I just gone through some of the myths and some explanations about it. But a lot of these has happened because of fake news. And fake news is so serious. So how do we fight fake news? The WHO has talked about infodemic, information epidemic. Apart from the virus epidemic or pandemic, we have an information epidemic. And that has caused so much of trouble. So simple things like don't forward that and develop a framework for evaluating information. Be like the Bereans. Like in the scripture, Paul saying, be like the Bereans. They any doctrine and all which is coming, they look at it, they don't just take it at face value. So if we are not going to take ICMR recommendations at face value, we should also, in the same manner, not take fake news at face value. So, what kind of information are people looking for, and what are they expecting to get today? You'll find that we get our information from various places. Local and international news, data, webinars, online courses, epidemiological updates, general announcements, social networks. So we are flooded with information, and we need to know where to look for the right information, because the wrong information can be disastrous. So why can how is the infodemic making the pandemic worse? What happens is so much of information that it makes it difficult for people and decision makers, health workers, or even people to know what kind of a decision to make. So we need to find out good information. Infodemic can also cause depression, anxiety, and we are reading so much all the time that we don't even do our normal activities now. Um, So we need to develop a framework to be able to analyze the evidence that is coming, and also we need to fight infodemic, and we need to fight the news, because this misinformation expands at a very fast pace, and they are also designed by very very bright people. The people who are spreading the true news, they present it in a very boring fashion. You know, I mean, if you look at ICMR website, it's not very impressive. No, it's written just in black and white. It's not being, very beautiful videos and all will not be made. Whereas the fake videos will be done in such a wonderful manner, so it is so convincing. Uh, there is no quality control on what is being published or what is being given in fake news. Normally, in the scientific world, if somebody says this medicine is working or not working, we don't take it at face value. We will look at all the published articles, we look at 5, 6 articles, or maybe meta analysis to see whether it's true or not. We don't just take it like that. But in WhatsApp University, whatever is coming out of it, people just take it just like that. And even doctors are just taking it just like that. And so a lot of doctors even they didn't get vaccinated. So that is it's a dichotomy, it's a paradox that we for actual medical information we look at all the evidence, but when it is fake news we are not looking at the evidence. Today, anybody can write or publish anything on the web or on social media channels without any credibility. And that's why it is so dangerous. In the WHO, I've just written, they have written certain techniques, some methods, some pathways by which we can look at information and see how we can responsibly relate to it. And I think I was just talking to one pastor friend just today, and I said, even in our churches, we possibly need to do this. We need to conduct workshops on two things. One is how to analyze and how to process information and fake news. Second is we need to educate our congregation into uh, how to responsibly use social media. These two things I think are very very important. So yeah, I think I will close with that, and I'd like to again thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share some of our concerns. Thank you.
Dr. Sandevi, it has been a so comprehensive presentation, and you touched scientifically every aspect of it. Thank you so much. I have one suggestion saying that, see, if you look at the international scenario, Israel was the first country to buy the vaccine and get everybody vaccinated. And there is normal life for everybody to see. That's one of the best proof that we have that this vaccine works. Secondly, you spoke about reaction. I received a vaccine and I had no reaction. Doesn't mean that it doesn't act on me or over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Father Sebastian. I also would like to recognize the presence of Father Sebastian, who is well known to Dr. Devi. I am told they are very good friends. Father Sebastian is the head of Northeast COVID Task Force, and we were doing a lot of work, as Dr. Devi rightly said. The content creation, educating people about the misinformation, and the infodemic, the key words that he has mentioned. We took it very seriously, Dr. Sadevi, and Father Sebastian is very much part of it. Many members of the COVID Task Force Northeast India, they are present here. And at the end of the meeting, I would request Father Sebastian to say the final words on behalf of Bishop Albert. Bishop Albert has asked me to tell you, so I am requesting Father Sebastian. Dr. Sedevi, thank you so much. And we would like to have 2, 3 responses, very short. And then we will open it also for some discussions. And may I also request the others, if you have any questions, any queries, please use the chat box, and we will be happy to respond to you. And I am also happy to say that the presentation and the content of today's meeting will be available on social platforms, so like in WhatsApp, in Facebook, in YouTube. So we will make this valuable information available. Thank you. Now, having said that, may I now request Father Payashada, Father Payashada, for the information of all, has been awarded as the COVID warrior of by the Rotary Club of Meghalaya. And I would like to mention in particular why he was awarded the COVID warrior award. Because of the good communication, the right communication that he has been doing in Meghalaya. How he did that through the social media. And I would like to request Father Payashada, the chairman of SASCO, who is doing a commendable work in Meghalaya and throughout through social media, to respond to the presentation of Dr. Sadevi. Welcome, Father Payashada.
Good evening to you all. Good evening, Father Tom, Father Johnson, Father Setianto, Dr. Sedevi, Sister Shetty, Miss Gugu Eralu, Sir Alan Brook, and especially our Bishop Amran. Dear Doctor, privilege to have listened to your talk. You spoke from the heart. You did a lot of research, very informative, yet very humble. And you know, means you are a doctor who practice your faith with actions, as St. James says. Faith without action is dead. Through your talk, we are empowered to go out and speak to people, because we get one more doctor who explained to us, who informed us that it's very good to get vaccinated. For me, few points. For example, people here are afraid. There are so many things they are afraid, but one thing, they are afraid that if they take vaccine, they will not be pregnant, and then they lost the power to make love, so to say. So many social media. But through your talk now, I could get that I could go and tell people that this is good, because if you take this vaccine, maybe more pregnancy will occur there. Second, you said about the fake news, about the fake rumors. Then he said it is better to trust in those people who have lot of research and data like SMR than to trust in fake news, whom we cannot get any proof to say that what they are saying is true. So there are so many things that I really appreciate your talk, Doctor. Thank you so much. And I said these are the 2 points. There are so many points I would like to share. But from my part, these points, that is the pregnancy, I get more, and then about the nature of the virus, that it is different types of virus, that virus mutates, and so we can help and we can go and talk to the people. We have already so many other points, but with your talk, I get more points to go out and speak to the people. And I said, we are empowered because such a scholarly doctor, very informative, who gave us the talk. And with that one, we can go out and say, Dr. Sedebi also told us that it is good to give a vaccine. You know, here in Shillong, our Archbishop gave the vaccine, and we took to the YouTube, to the social media. Many, many people responded very positively. But however, there are 1 or 2% who said, Bishop, we obey you, we believe you everything. But with the vaccine, please don't tell us to go and get vaccinated because because it is against everything that we have. So I'm very, very happy to have listened to your very informative talk, Doctor. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Father Payashadap. I think, not I think, you made it a very pertinent point. You said Dr. Sadevi spoke from the heart. I don't know whether he's a heart, he's specialized in cardiology, but but the passion that you have to communicate, I think that was really really wonderful. And then you spoke with the conviction and from your heart. I would like to underline what Father Payashadap said. Thank you, Father Payashadap. And now we will have a short response from Sister Shiji, or Sister Shiji, I would say. Sister is the Vice President of Sickness Northeast India, one of the communication wing of the church. Sister also is a communication specialist, and we would like to hear a short response from Sister Shiji. Welcome, Sister Shiji.
Thank you, Father. Good evening to our Bishop Albert, Father Tom, Dr. Sadevi, Father Anto, and everyone who is present here. Uh, just to respond to today's program, uh, Bishop Albert, our chairman, has led us to the theme of the meeting at the very outset. The resource person of the program, Dr. Sedevi, was rightly introduced by Father Anto, and it has helped the listeners, all of us, to know the importance of the time we are about to spend. The talk this evening by Dr. Sedevi Angami is something which is very apt, timely, informative, and helpful. The talk we listened to has indeed given us a lot of inputs. Dr. Sedevi, we appreciate the way you dealt with the topic. You have given us information based on facts, your own experiences and findings. We are now better informed about vaccines and the advantages of getting vaccinated. Thank you so much. Listening to you, Dr. Sedevi, we have increased our confidence. We are now better prepared to guide and encourage people all over to get vaccinated. We are now convinced that vaccination reduces spread of the virus. It is safer way to help build protection, and that vaccines work with immune system, and that it can also fight virus if we are exposed. Above all, you have told us that vaccines are safe and effective, and you also told us one more important point, that we are to keep away from infodemic. That is very important point that you dealt with. Thank you so much for enlightening us, and I'm really sure that all those who have listened have enriched. I feel I have spent a quality time and enriching time. Thank you so much. And thanks to Father Tom and everyone who made it happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sister Shiji, for those words that you spoke, and particularly about the confidence level. Not I believe, and you have done it so well. That is the. I mean, I would if I am a teacher or a evaluation team, I would give 100 mark and then A plus certificate for Dr. Zadevi because you have instilled that confidence in all of us. And most of us who are here in this forum or meeting are community leaders who can transmit this confidence to others. Thank you very much, Sister, for telling us that very, very true, the truth of what the message of Dr. Sadevi. Now, we have a short response again from Miss Gugu Hidalo. She is a trainer and then one of the resource person for Peace Channel. She's based in Nagaland and Dimapur. Over to you, Miss Gugu.
Thank you, sir. Peace to you and greetings from Peace Channel. Really grateful and would like to thank the organizers for putting this together. And I'm sorry I came in the midway and I was listening to Dr. Sedevi's input session. And I must say that it came at a it was very timely. And I say this from the heart because in response to his input session, especially on the area where we all need to work together and also the responsibilities of every individual in getting our facts right and also the right information being passed on to our near and dear ones and also the social media responsibilities because a lot of these questions that has been raised by Dr. Sedevi and also people who are inboxing now in the Dropbox and also the questions to clarify from the medical department. I mean, there are many, but I think having a discerning heart and mind to know the difference between what is factual and what is not, and what can be avoided by each one of us is so important. And I think this requires each one of us to help one another and also do course correction in all the capacities that we can. And in response to this, I was also encouraged to also share this experience in 2 minutes. I just came back from a blood donation for my aunt in Eden Hospital. And during this COVID time, it is quite challenging for any one of us to think about blood donation during this time. So I just want to show I got myself, you know, donated a unit and I must say that it has been an experience because of the myth and also the fear, and it's very natural. But I think what is very important is that we are careful and we follow all the SOPs and we keep our immune system healthy and we eat and take care of ourselves and also make sure that we follow all the medical advices that has been given to us. The moment we skip these steps, it is quite unpredictable what could happen to us. But there are also many cases where we have been very, very thorough with all the SOPs and keeping ourselves healthy. Sometimes we also fall sick. I find that it's okay. But having said that, I'm just so grateful that we could have this discussion. And I think there should be in different dialects, in different languages, and especially in Nagamis, to reach out to the masses, and everybody should handhold the medical department, take care of our frontline workers. All of us are, I think, in that community, the ecosystem that we are creating. So, with this note, I hope and pray that we do our part and also be mindful and also show a caring community and be able to, even when we go to the hospital, the nurse who was taking my blood, I just asked her, "How are you?" And just wanted to let her know that we think of them and we appreciate for all the hard work that they're doing. And all she could do was smile. And I think that smile speaks a lot. So thank you, organizers and Dr. Sadevi and all of you for doing this and for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Ms. Gugu, thank you also for reminding us the great, great work that is done by our frontline workers, frontline staff like the doctors, nurses, and the people in the government administration. They have been working from last year onwards without rest, without their family, without leisure, we can go on. And you made a pertinent point. We need to support them, love them, and then do what we can to protect them. And this meeting, we also would like to value and appreciate the work done by our frontline warriors. And as Dr. Sedavi in his presentation rightly said, the first ones to take the vaccines were the health team, and you showed us the way, and we are just following what you have shown. Thank you, Gugu. And we have a few minutes for suggestions and clarifications. We had requested you to put the questions and queries in our chat box. I don't see any questions here, but there are two very important observations by Dr. Sadevi. He said, please check the chat box. Please check the CMC Vellore Public Health lectures on COVID. It is very good. Dr. Sadevi, we will certainly look into that. And I also am very happy to say that the COVID task force of Kohima Diocese and ESCO in partnership, we have started a series of public lectures, public discourses on COVID, and we will continue. Of course, we will not disturb you every now and then, but we will surely take the help of doctors, maybe other doctors in the referral hospital, maybe some community leaders, but we will continue this exercise in the coming days. And it is for the information of others also that this lecture series, this information series that we are having will be done on every Tuesday at 4 o'clock. We watch out for the information. And then there is another information that is given by Dr. Sadevi. Please look at the CDC, WHO, or John Hopkins, ICMR, Mayo Clinic websites. They are all very sound and useful and has enough information to equip us. Medcram video series are also very, very educative. And thank you, doctor, for telling us. And okay. Okay, so there is a request, Dr. Sadevi, to you to make the presentation available to us in the email or in whatever form we will make it available. And you have summarized the findings of many well-known research foundations, and I see that you have substantiated it with input. Now, I would open this house for a small discussion or maybe a comment, maybe a word of appreciation. We will open it for 5 minutes. Thank you.
Father Tom,
If you would like to speak, please go on. Yes.
one question to Dr. Sedevi. Doctor, I took the Covishield in the month of April. I'm supposed to take the second dose in the month of June 10th, but they extended till July. So I want to know explanation on this directly from you. Thank you.
Yeah, the thing is, the government feels that, I mean, they feel that studies show that the response is better, the antibody response is better when you wait a little longer. And it's always a possibility that you may even need a third booster. All these are under observation right now. Because see, when you roll out a medicine or a vaccine, it goes through various stages. The first stage is what we call the preclinical stage, where you test it on monkeys, rats, and things like that before you test it on human beings. Then the second part is you have the phase one trials, where you just test the medicine or the vaccine on maybe just 5 or 10 people, healthy people, just to see that no bad reaction takes place. And they will look at the medicine dynamics and things like that. Now, when they feel that 5 or 10 people are okay, they will test it maybe on bigger numbers, 50, 100. So that's called phase 2 trial. And then it's almost the same as phase 1, but they bring it on larger numbers. So they look at safety and efficacy. And if they find that it's okay, safe, and it's effective, then but it's not convincing enough yet because the number is too small. So then they'll take it in several hundreds or thousands, and then they do this. It's called a phase 3 clinical trial, where they will take one side people who've been given the medicine, another side who's given no medicine, or compare it with some other standard of care medicine. And then they will say, okay, now it's effective or not effective, or it's safe or not safe. So many of the vaccines have gone through the clinical phase 3 trials. Now, once it is all done, then you put it under phase 4, which is post marketing surveillance. They have released it into the public and they are still studying it. So, many of these vaccines, like I know in the institutions like Belor, they give the vaccine and then they again measuring the antibodies after a period of time. So we don't have all the information yet. Maybe in another 1, 2 years, we will know that whether what they are saying is absolutely correct or not. Right now, we can only say, yeah, it's possible that it is correct, but we can't categorically say it is correct. For most of us, we got it within 1 month, and it seems to be effective. Now, it is yet to see whether this 3 month delay, whether it's going to help and give much better response or not in a larger number. So, I think we'll have to wait for the results. Currently, we cannot say that 3 months is much better than 1 month like that. So that's a recommendation. It's not yet fully accepted. But one more thing is, I just wanted to say is that vaccine hesitancy, when people do not take vaccines, we should not assume that everybody is not taking vaccines for the same reasons. When I discussed with eight of our staff, we found that everybody had a different reason. And it's necessary to talk with them and ask, what is your reason? Because if we go around and we tell everything, this is why you should take vaccine. And the reason why he didn't take may be completely different from what we thought. So, for example, in Nagaland, a lot of people feel that tuberculosis is caused by being beaten up by the army when you're young. When you're a teenager, you get beaten up by an elderly person. Then later on, when you become old, you get TB. So even if you say TB is caused by a germ, they won't accept. So the perceptions of people can be very, very different. And so one size does not fit all. So we may need to talk with people and say, what is your reason? So it's a lot of hard work, a lot of individual talking to, but we'll have to do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sadavi, for that question. There are two questions in the chat box. One is this is by our PBM Vasai Mohit from Meghalaya, a tall leader from Meghalaya. He is posting two questions. I just read it out. Have had 2 doses of vaccination. Is there a need for more vaccination? Second, how to reach out to public with more of these facts, as government communication is mainly on lockdown and following protocol and can't move around to make people aware. And thirdly, please elaborate more on delinking vaccine from 666. Doctor, yeah, Dr. Sedevi.
Yeah. So I'm not an expert on the 666, so I'm really not sure what I would do. I think some of the other theologians will know much better and they'll be able to give a better answer to that. I really don't know how to go about it. I'll have to think. But I'm sure people in the audience will be much better than me for that. I think currently, see, the thing is, medicine is always evolving. And we don't know whether 2 doses is better than 3 doses. It's possible that as they study is more studies and results come out, it might even be possible. What we know from influenza vaccine is, in India, we don't do too much of adult vaccination. But abroad, if you're 65 years, you'll have your influenza vaccine every year. It's normal. It's part of the adult vaccination program. In India also, it might become a little more popular. And some of our friends who've been getting vaccinated every year, they said it's very good. A little bit of variation in the vaccine will take place, but it seems to be helping. It's quite possible that we may end up getting vaccinated every year. But what is the exact, like in hepatitis B, we know that you take it day 1, day 30, and after 6 months, 3 doses. It's quite possible that might happen, we're not sure. So that viral dynamics, the antibody dynamics, I think we need to get much more information on that. And I'm sure within a year or two, we'll get better recommendations. Currently, I'm sure all of you are also doing your own means of communications to the public. What we did is when the COVID had not yet reached Nagaland, we got all the information. Many of our staff were trained by the CMC Vellore COVID course, and then there was another course called COVID Suraksha, which was for lay people. COVID course for technical medical people. And what we did is we conducted about 20 workshops across Dimapur to help to build up the capacity. But once lockdowns happened, we couldn't do that. So we created around 20 pamphlets on the various aspects of COVID, and we gave it to the government, churches, everybody. And this is widespread. So I think we can all make better educated videos or better education pamphlets. And whatever we have, we are happy to share. And you can make it better. Some of our staff are quite good in this. I'm absolutely hopeless in it. I can only put some wording, but I just can't make those, nice designs. But some of our staff are very good in that. So I think you will be able to find some person amongst yourself, use cartoons or whatever, the most effective manner to be able to communicate. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sedevi, for those answers. As you rightly said, I think questions about 666, I think it is a separate topic. It needs a lot of theological and then a lot of reflection. We will maybe we will leave it to the theologians and church leaders to debate on that. I think we will not be able to ask. I know there are competent people in this forum to do, but I think we will keep it for another time and another occasion. There is another. There are two questions two observations that are made. One is this is a question. This is by Olivia Sharma. Hi, doctor. I would like to know if it is okay to get vaccination to those who have autoimmune disease. Some say it is risky for them to get vaccinated, and that is one. Then I would add one more with NGO workers, and this is by by somebody. Yimyanglar Jamir. She's asking, will the NGO workers try to get the appointment and slot for getting COVID vaccine, but we failed to get it? Is it possible to arrange vaccine for NGO workers from referral hospital by the management from Dimapur? Okay, so she's asking. So I think Dr. Sadevi can respond to these two queries. Over to Dr. Sadevi.
First of all, autoimmune diseases are very, very varied. And autoimmune disease is not a contraindication for vaccination. We don't know whether your response will be as good as others or not. We have patients with, people who have, COVID vaccine is like any other vaccine. So, if you are immunocompromised, like if you have HIV or you are a kidney transplant patient on immunosuppressants, steroids, the chances that you will respond to the vaccine are less than others. And so sometimes we may have to develop different strategies to ensure that you get a good immune response. But then, yeah, it is unpredictable whether you will respond well or not, whether you will get protected well or not. So I think autoimmune conditions basically because you are immunocompromised, so I think you are the right candidate to get the vaccine. No, in fact, a lot of people were saying, I'm diabetic, I'm elderly, so I'm scared to get the vaccine. And I was telling them, the vaccine was created for people like you. So it is good to get the vaccination, but I don't think there is any, we don't have any report saying people who have autoimmune disease tend to get worse side effects than others. We don't have that information. So I would say just go ahead and get vaccinated. The yeah for actually the problem in private hospitals getting the vaccines has been quite an issue, and I'm part of an organization known as Association of Healthcare Providers of India. And initially, government gave to us and said you can sell, and we'll give you the vaccines. So we were helping the general population to get vaccinated. Later, they labeled us as private, and as a result, we stopped getting the vaccine and we were trying to see how to get the vaccine ourselves. But it was very difficult to get it. Until date, most of the private hospitals are unable to procure it because for various reasons. They said it will take at least 1 month to 2 months to get it. So we told the government and said, see, don't consider us as private, just label us as government because we are anyway a public-private partnership. We are not interested in the money profit, it's immaterial. We want to just vaccinate as many people as possible. So they have changed our name back into government. And so now we just give it just like any other government institution, and we follow the norms of any other government center. The only problem is that, the same problems that government centers have because the COVID app it gets filled up very fast, and we are unable to do much regarding that. I guess this is just a temporary period, but after some time, once the production becomes much higher, then most people should not have an issue getting it. But it's still a problem trying to procure, and many of the hospitals all over the country under the HPI, they still have the same problem. And the way government is giving to the private sector is rules keep changing quite frequently, so it's a bit difficult for us to predict and plan also.
Thank you, Dr. Sadevi. There is a question again in our chat box. It goes like this: is there any truth in the Michigan University report that Northeast is going to be the next hotspot for COVID? Is there going to be a third wave? It is by Father Johnson. And then, yeah, over to you, Dr. Sadevi.
Yeah, so the third wave is based on the premise that what are the possibilities that a third wave will happen? Why would it happen? One is not enough people have been vaccinated. Secondly, the vaccine did not work. Thirdly, a lot of people, the children and all were not vaccinated, so they are going to be the ones who are going to be affected. So those would be the premise under which you would possibly get a third wave. But I don't think the Northeast is any different from any other location. Initially, when it first started in China, people thought, okay, Indians are different. We are used to dirty food, all kinds of infections, so our immunity is anyway good. The initial SARS did not have much problem. MERS did not have much problem. Swine flu came and went. And so, since we are generally exposed to dirt from our childhood, we might be able to overcome. And that's what some of us also believed in. But we realized that Indians, Brazilians, Americans, Northeasterners are all the same. We all behave in almost the same manner. We have a similar mortality or response. So I don't see why the Northeast should be the next hotspot unless it's related to lack of vaccination. You know, but there's no genetic basis upon which we would consider that as a possibility.
Thank you, Dr. Sadavi. You touched another important point. When can we? Okay, is Northeast a hotspot? And you touched on another angle to it. If people do not go for vaccination, the risk is very high. And you are also telling us we are not different from other people. I think that is a very, very important observation. And then there is another question that is coming on our chat box. Many nations in the world are declared COVID free. When can we Indians expect such a news? This is from Sister Shiji. And the next one is, do the persons who recovered from COVID need vaccination? As a person's body has already been exposed to the virus. Over to you, Dr. Sadevi.
Yeah, so in terms of the nations in the world being declared COVID free, now one of the things which we must remember is that there was an index case. The COVID virus started from one person, and one person was enough to spread it throughout the whole world. No? So until that one person is completely eradicated, no, the virus is eradicated from the whole world, there's always a possibility that things can always spread again. So I don't think we should say COVID free. We would possibly say COVID undetected, or yeah, rather than saying COVID free. This happened, when we were first relating to COVID in Nagaland and in India. People said there is no community spread, and they wanted to give a very tight definition to the community spread thing. And I think that was not really necessary. So when you talk about polio, we know that polio has been, we know smallpox has been eradicated. Polio has been eradicated from almost all the places. But we know that in Pakistan and Afghanistan especially, polio vaccination has been a problem because of various reasons. No? And as long as there is a small reservoir, we can never say the world is polio free. So I think that we will have to have constant vigilance. And that's the reason, that's possibly the new normal, that we need to have a very good network of laboratory network throughout the country. We need to have systems which are very, very well developed to identify new infections as fast as possible. So I think that will need to be a national priority, to be able to develop research facilities all across the country so that we can identify infections as they come as fast as possible. So we will have to become research-oriented people. Although we might not, we might be more service-oriented, but now we will have to become more research-oriented because it can happen within our backyard. So, yeah, when can we say COVID-free? I think epidemiologists might be able to give mathematical models and say this is possibly, the time, but that is only a model, so it's a tentative thing. So until it happens, we will not be able to say so. For people who have recovered from COVID, according to the government, and what they're saying is generally 3 months after you should have your vaccine, because the vaccine and the virus is not the same thing. And the vaccines have now been developed in such a way that it might give a better boost to your immunity and help you to develop antibodies better. So, time will only tell us exactly whether you really need to take or not to take. As of now, the recommendation is yes to take it. That recommendation might change. Guidelines keep changing. So, we will only know after a few years the actual results.
Thank you, doctor. There is another question that has come. Do the persons who recovered from COVID need vaccination as a person's body has already been exposed to the virus? I think we have already touched on that. I think with that we have I don't see any more questions on the chat line. I would request if you have got any queries, you can raise your hand or you use the button below, and then you can just show on your show on the screen. Well, I don't see. Yes, Pastor Abel, please, yeah.
Uh, the question is this basically is earlier also regarding the NGO workers. Basically, that we are also, every day trying to move around and help people, assist people, and many of us have been vaccinated for the first dose, but definitely looking to, like, I was in the civil hospital twice already today, with church members, getting them. So we were saying if somehow our second dose could be expedited because we've already in that timeline that was given before. So that is a very serious concern even for our elderly pastors who are leading, these organizations. They are moving around, and they're at a high risk level. So I really appeal that if somehow some adjustments can be done, that was just, I believe, that's a very important thing, because we have exposure outside. Over to
Yeah, Dr. Sedave, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, so because we were following whatever is the government norms, we had to do that. And we were getting a limited number. So whatever is registered on our own, we didn't have a choice to do anything. So like I can't register my own son, no, because he was not a frontline worker. So that way we just had to wait. Uh, so that is somehow a little beyond our control. But what I did was I was looking at the amount of vaccine wastage. That at the end of the day you might have about 3 or 4 doses still left, and we don't want to throw it away. It's so precious. So that's why what we said is, okay, just make a waiting list at least of people who are willing to get vaccinated, and some people who have been registered don't turn up. Then those people on the waiting list, then you can then register them. But otherwise you have to go by the app. I mean, we don't have a choice. So that's our
yes,
problem. I wish the government didn't have to, see, for people like us who travel a lot, we would possibly need the vaccine certificate. But a poor villager from the field, why does he need a vaccine certificate? No. He's, so it's not relevant at all. And plus he's not being, he can't go onto the app. He won't know how to go about it also. So I sincerely hope that we can avoid all this registration in the long run, and be able to do it, because our hands are all tied because of that. I mean, given the chance, I was telling our staff, I said, if the bottleneck is the laptop to register, we will have 10 laptops, 5 laptops, and you vaccinate, you know, 500 people in one day instead of 150 in one day. That's the problem is the bottleneck. We are given only a certain quota, and we just have to do according to what is registered on the app. So all our hands are tied.
Thank you, Dr. Sadavi. And you have touched a very important aspect of what is going on. There is a question or observation in the chat line. Is vaccination for 18 years old, 18 year and above, are available now in all the hospitals or not? Since last month, but it didn't get any scheduled date and all that. Can you please explain a little bit on this?
Now, this might be different from state to state. I think in Nagaland, they made it 18 to 44 allowed, on Monday and Tuesday. Then they made it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the rest could be done from throughout the week. So I need to see whether there's any change in that. But 18 to 44 was allowed. But the problem was the app was, as soon as you open it, immediately gets finished. No? So that has been quite frustrating for a lot of people.
Thank you, Dr. Sadavi. I don't see any hands or anything on the chat line, and I think we will wind up for today. We would hear a little summary of what has been happening, and then especially of course the summary is not everything of what we heard, but it will just highlight what we did today. And for that, I would like to invite Father Blasius. He's the headmaster of Sajauba School in Manipur. Thank you. Welcome to Father Blasius Tate, the headmaster of St. Joseph's High School, Sajauba, Manipur. Yes, Father, please unmute yourself. Yeah. Father Blasius, yeah.
Blasius has to unmute himself.
Father Blasius, please unmute yourself. We can't hear you. Father Blasius. Father Blasius.
So sorry. Am I audible, Father, now?
Please
Yes, now you're audible.
Thank you. So good evening to everyone. I'm here to present a short summary of the meeting. Actually, according to the report, according to the program, Father Johnson was supposed to give the present opening prayer and welcome address, but in his place, Pastor Reverend Abel prayed over the meeting and invited the presence of God over the meeting and over all of us. Then, in the second place, Bishop Albert gave us a message, and in his message, he emphasized 3 points. He said that self-responsibility is required. Virus can come from outside our body, and so it is not generated. Only it is a visitor. It gets inside. And he also told the second point that we need to take precaution. We need to follow the government protocols and take precautionary measures. Then the third point that he emphasized is this: One is duty bound not to distribute the virus to others. And so when one is affected by virus, he is to isolate himself or herself and follow the protocol. Fourth point he mentioned is this, that everyone response of others against COVID supply, those who are mm, in containment zone, they are to be given all the food supply or hospital or whatever to be given should be provided to those who are affected. And it is a responsibility of all of us, government, NGO, and others. And he concluded his message with a Bible quote from 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3 to 4. In the third place, our resource person was introduced by Father Anto. And in his introduction, he told that Dr. Sedevi is a well-known person, and he is a philanthropy, social worker, humanitarian person, concerned for the poor and needy, and he, in collaboration with the church, going to feed the hungry, and he's very committed, dedicated, and honest, and a lot of nobility is found in him. And so he also highlighted about his professional studies. Then Dr. Sedevi, a resource person, presented in a very elaborate manner. I will, since the matter will be available for us, and so I would just read maybe few headings. He told about the staff members who were vaccinated and they were safe, and he told about the reasons for not taking vaccines. And he mentioned many of the reasons why we, because dying of clots, fertility, then conspiracy, and scientists are talking against about it, and even 666, which even in the questionnaire it came. Then he talked about the facts. He talked about many facts. Then he talked about different types of vaccine that are available in details, and also two vaccines which are available in India. Then he talked about different myths and facts. He also told that vaccine does not alter our DNA. It does not make sick with COVID. Then he also told about the social media and many other points. Then he told about how to fight the fake news which are spreading. And towards the end, he also told that we need to have workshop even with our church members, how to analyze information and also how to make responsible use of the information that we get. Then we had a response from Father Pius Shadab, who talked about 4 points, that it is good to take vaccine, then about the pregnancy, about the fake news, and about the nature of virus. Then uh, then we heard from Sister Shizi, and she talked about Bishop Albert, who led us to the theme beautifully. Then she talked about how rightly our resource person was introduced by Father Anto, and she talked that this seminar is very apt, timely, and it is helping us, and we got a lot of inputs, information, facts, and finding, and now we are better informed, and we are more confident now. And she talked many other points. I will only deal with this. Then we heard from Miss Ngugu Eralu. She was grateful that she was invited, and then she talked about the blood donation also, which she did. And then one important point she made is that we are to spread the news in different languages, different dialects, especially in Nagamis, and how she encouraged the workers, those who are working in the hospitals, nurses and doctors. Then we had many suggestions and clarifications and questions. And Dr. Sevedi also told us where the resources are available in the website. Then CNC Velour, those lectures which are available. Then Father Pius raised a question about the second dose when it is to be taken, that it is good to take after 3 months. Then is it about second dose also need for those? Is it required also for those who have already recovered from COVID-19? Then about the NGO workers. Then about the referral hospital, that about the private hospitals from where we could get the vaccine. Those questions were raised. Then about Northeast being the next hotspot, and as our resource person beautifully answered those questions. Then there were also questions about other nations which are not using mask because they have already overcome, and also persons who have recovered, whether they require to take the vaccine or not. Um, then Pastor Abel raised questions about the certificate, because many NGOs and other pastors who are going around, whether they require certificates or not. And then about the last question that was raised was those people who are 18 and above, whether vaccine, when they can take the vaccine. So these were and in summary form I would like to present. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father Blasius, for giving us that summary of what we had this evening. And I would like to, or we would like to recognize the presence of an important person. I have seen him attending this program right from the very beginning, and he is none other than Sir Tavasilan K. IAS, the DC of Mon district of Nagaland. Sir, I know you are there right from the very beginning. We would like to have a word from you. Over to Sir Tavasilan K. IAS, the DC of Mon. Sir, can you hear us? Can you hear us, sir?
Yes, Father.
Yes.
Yeah, Father.
Alan, 1 minute, okay? 1 minute, 1 minute.
Okay.
Tavasilan, sir, are you there?
I think Sir has unmuted himself. Sir has muted. Yeah.
Sir has muted, okay. Tavasilan, sir. Okay, I think we will go to the anyway. I would like to recognize the presence of this sir. He was there right from the very beginning, and he sent a message requesting us to share the PowerPoint presentations. Well, we will certainly do that. And adding to what he has said, We will continue this exercise, and that came up so powerfully in our deliberations today. And before we conclude, I would like to invite Mr. Alan Bruce, a man who has spends most of his time on communication, communicating the good, communicating the SOPs of the government, and in WhatsApp group, in Facebook pages, and then so on. Sir, Alan is a veteran journalist, an activist, and is a spokesperson of UCFNEI, United Christian Forum of Northeast India, I would say the biggest forum of the churches in Northeast India. Sir Alan is the spokesperson. Also, he is the spokesperson of Assam Christian Forum, and he was a major bureaucrat in the capacity of the Minority Commission. He worked in the Minority Commission of the government of Assam. I can add many more laurels to his credit. And may I invite Sir Alan to propose the vote of thanks. Over to Sir Alan.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Father Tom, for giving me this opportunity to speak to this August gathering. At the onset, I would like to thank all the participants. I was watching the numbers of participants, and we were almost touching 100, cutting across all churches, because I could see people from the former president of the Council of Baptist Churches of Northeast India present on the meeting, Dr. Abel. I could see many of the other people present out here from across the Northeast. So in fact, this is it has been a very wonderful platform to share the information. Coming to Dr. Angami, I would like to personally and on behalf of all the participants wish to thank you for the wonderful, wonderful presentation. The most important thing of your presentation was that you dealt with a most difficult topic in the most, I would say, most understandable language for every person who is not a technical person. You use the terms which are very clean for us to understand, so that we could communicate it in a better manner. Sometimes we come across some of the informations which are being given to us, which are very technical in nature, and it is very difficult for us to understand, or sometimes difficult to communicate those informations to the larger audience. But you have, I think so, your part of the presentation should be used extensively by the churches, by the pastors, and maybe through their pulpits and other forums to send out the good news which you have been spreading. Thank you, Dr. Angami, for the wonderful presentation. I would also like to thank all the people who has responded, because there's a list of them: Father Sadap, Sister Siji, Ms. Harulu, and above all, I think so, we must thank the Nagaland task force led by Father Anto, who helped joining this whole webinar together with Father Tom and bringing us for this thing. One thing which is very important, which we need to understand today, is that we are living at a very important time where technology is coming into our bedrooms and drawing rooms and everything. We have the tool in our hands, but along with the good news, the fake news also is reaching us. And when fake news is repeated, it becomes difficult for the public to discern what's real. And I think so sometimes we are also becoming mediums or vehicles of this spreading the fake news. I think so. If you are a little bit active on the social platforms, there are a lot of tools available or sites available where you can go and check your news, whether it is true or false, before forwarding it to the next person. I think so. We can start the good word from here. When a news comes to you, please check it whether it is true or false before forwarding it. Sometimes, very, very casually, we like the news. Sometimes it appeals to us. Sometimes, we are gullible with what is being said, but we forward it, not knowing that, that news is going to be forwarded how many thousands of times to the next person, and suddenly that news which was fake becomes the truth. And I think so, as responsible leaders and communicators, I think so we need to be very careful when we are forwarding news, especially news at this very moment of juncture. If you realize, there was news reports where the churches of Northeast were accused of spreading fear among the people regarding the vaccine. One reporter had asked me, and my opinion was there. I said we have a lot of doomsday prophets nowadays, and we cannot be concerned. But the larger interests of the people are taken care by the church, and every church leader is leading the fight personally. I can see Father Sebastian from NEDCSF sitting down right across. Uh, Pastor Abel, Father Anto, and the likes of everybody, all of them are leading from the front. And I think so. This is the message that should be reaching the grassroots level. And as leaders, I think so. We need to not to be only heard. We need to be seen and heard, both in action. And as we take it to the ground, I think so. We will be reaching our target soon. The Prime Minister has already announced the vaccination will be free from 18 to 44. We only pray at the present moment that we get the vaccinations on time and as fast as we can. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, Sir Alan, for those words of gratitude, and also for putting us in the perspectives of what we can do. And we come to the close of this program. And before I conclude, or before we go to the last part of the program, I would like to inform all of you that we will continue this exercise next Tuesday with the same, may not be with the same persons, but definitely on different angles of what we are. And we will continue this exercise, and these are things that we need to do, and we will continue to do that. And please spread the information. Please be part of it. We will share the inputs of today's deliberation in different forms, on WhatsApp, and then in email, and so we will continue to disseminate good information. And we, for the last the concluding remarks and prayer, I would like to invite Father Sebastian, Dr. Father Sebastian, and those of you who are from Nagaland will know. And he just came from St. Joseph College, Jacama. The other day I was talking to him, and then he was mentioning about Dr. Sadevi. And he said, he is, Dr. Sadevi is such a busy person, and but he has not missed any meetings, and then he was in the managing committee, and then he was telling me about his close association with Dr. Sadevi. In fact, I wanted to tell Father Sebastian brother to say a few words, but we were already too many, so I did not ask him. But I think it is providence, I believe it is providence that Father Sebastian is the right person to say the gratitude from our heart. And when I say gratitude from our heart, I really mean Dr. Sadevi. You really touched what is to be done and what we can do as leaders, as church people, and others who are involved in the concerns of our people. We will continue this, and we will keep you updated. And thank you very much for being with us. And over to Father Sebastian. Welcome, Father Sebastian.
Thank you, Father Tom. Just two words about Dr. Sadevi again. So much has been said about him. And then I watched with interest People were discussing whether he's a heart specialist or not. Of course, he clarified. But I reaffirm that he is a heart specialist because everything that happens in his life is processed through his heart. And that makes it so different and so sacred. And the whole of his attitude towards life is formed in his heart. And so he is a heart specialist in a very special. And in his life, the person is the message that we can trust him, and he puts his heart and soul into every problem, and he finds always solutions to the whole problem. And it's in the backdrop of this that we need to look at the change in the national policy that vaccine is going to be free, and whether the predictions of Michigan University is going to be correct or not, we need to move forward to bring vaccine to every corner of every village. And it's not that easy unless we move forward. For this we pledge today and we turn to the Lord and pray. Lord, our Heavenly Father, right from the beginning of creation, you took care of us, right through the flood, right through the fight for freedom from Egypt, you were present with us. And down through the centuries, mankind has faced problems, and you are with us to find solutions. Perhaps in the memory that we have, we never faced a problem like this challenge of COVID 19. We have come together. Lord Jesus, you spend 72% of your time in the healing ministry. We ask you to descend into our midst, make every person a healer for another, support our effort, support our endeavor, and free us from fear and enable us, Lord, to move forward with all the strength that we have, with all the faith that we have, with all the resource that we have in our fight against COVID 19. Bless each one of us, inspire us, guide us, and enable us to move forward with completely dedicated in heart and mind to bring healing to everyone in this critical time. This we ask of you through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Father Sebastian, for adding adding adjective, or I mean saying what your close association with Dr. Sadevi. We are really fortunate to have somebody whose passion reminds all of us of what we can do. For those of us who are still there, I just would like to inform you that next meeting, next Tuesday, we will have the same time at 4 o'clock. We will also have somebody speaking to us about the COVID. I mean, how to face COVID, and we will have a survivor, COVID survivor, speaking to us besides the other panelists as well. Thank you very much, and have a good day, good night, and then keep well, keep safe, keep promoting life, and may all what we can do be done to promote life in the Northeast, and may the Lord be glorified in all. Thank you.